So this is the last video for the lesson called rates, and we're going to talk about finding unit rates now. And so really the last two lessons and worksheets that you guys have done has been there to prepare you for this. This is where the rubber meets the road. This is actually what we want you to be able to do. There's just sort of a lot to it, and so that's why we had to teach the other skills separately. And so the I can statement obviously is I can find unit rates, and then quick little definition. A unit rate is a rate with a denominator of 1. That's why we worked on taking care of complex fractions, and that's why we worked on filling out those tables in the first video so that you guys would understand what a rate is. It's something getting done over a certain amount of time, or an action over a certain amount of time. And then making that rate have a denominator of 1 makes it a lot easier for us to deal with. For example, let me go over our first problem here. This problem reads, Sarah's heart beat 455 times in 5 minutes. What is the unit rate of her heartbeat? Okay, so I'm going to write that out. 455 beats in 5 minutes. Now the reason I know this is a rate is because we have something going on over a certain amount of time. So I know it's a rate for sure. But the reason I know that it's not the unit rate is because the denominator is not 1. And to keep this really simple, the way to turn this into a unit rate is to just divide by the denominator. For example, if we want the denominator to be 1, how do you get 5 to 1? Well, you divide 5 by 5, because any number divided by itself is 1. But you also have to do the same thing to the numerator. In other words, all you have to do in these situations is divide the numerator by the denominator. So we set ourselves up to do that. And we divide differently for different kinds of numbers. In the last lesson, you learned how to evaluate if there's a fraction up here and a fraction in the denominator. But now we have whole numbers, so it makes it a little easier. And so we do the division, and we end up with 91. So that means that Sarah's heart beat 91 beats per minute. That's significant. Probably means Sarah was exercising or jogging or maybe walking fast. I'm not really quite sure. It would depend on Sarah's height and weight and everything on what range of heartbeat would be normal for her. But it's definitely elevated beyond the normal. And so 91 beats per minute is easier for us to think of than 455 beats per 5 minutes. So really it's as simple as dividing by the denominator. That's all you do. Here's one more example problem. In this one, it's a little bit trickier, but it's the same principle. Sam walks 2 1/2 miles in 1 1/3 hours. First, I had to know that this right here, 2 1/2, is the mixed number 2 1/2, and then the 1 1/3 is 1 1/3. And so similarly, I can divide. So I divide by the denominator. So this is 2 1/2 divided by 1 1/3. But mathematically, there's a lot more steps to dividing mixed numbers, and we touched on this briefly earlier in the year. So remember, if you're going to divide mixed numbers, the first thing you need to do is turn them all into fractions. Or at least that's one way you could do it. There's other ways, but that's the way I like to teach it. So we turn this, whole number times denominator plus numerator. So 2 times 2 is 4 plus 1 is 5. So this is 5 over 2. Over here we get 4 over 3. And so this is our new problem, right? Well, to continue this, we have to keep, change, flip. And so I'm going to kind of come over here to the left to do that. Keep, change, flip. All right. Now we look for things to cross simplify. There's nothing, so we multiply straight across. We end up with 15 over 8, or 1 7/8. So finally, we can say that Sam walks 1 7/8 miles per hour. Because when we divided, we got a denominator of 1, and so the number that we end up with is just the value that goes with our unit. So let me quickly recap. Just like this problem back here, that was a lot easier. you divide by the denominator. To do that, I had to convert to fractions, keep, change, flip, multiply, simplify, write down my final answer. Okay, I hope that wasn't too fast, but I don't think it was. I think you guys are going to do great with it. So, last problem. Julie walks 2.3 or 2 3/10 miles in 54 minutes. 54 minutes. What is Julie's unit rate? Well, similarly, we have to divide by the denominator. And yes, this is another calculation. That's not super easy. It's not super hard. 54 doesn't go into 23. It doesn't go into 2. It doesn't go into 23. So now I got to add a 0. It goes into 230 probably 4 times. So I'm going to multiply back. I think that's 216. When I do my subtraction, I think we get 14. Notice I'm skipping a lot of steps in this long division because I know you guys know how to long divide. So if you guys are over here, crossing stuff out and borrowing, that's great. Okay, don't feel intimidated. Okay, I think 54 goes into this 2 times. And 2 times 54 is 108. Subtract. And so would that be 32, right? 32 plus 8 is 40. Okay, bring down a 0. And this may go on for a long time. And if it goes on for a long time, I say, you know what? At some point, it's okay to round to the nearest hundredth. So I didn't say that you could round to the nearest hundredth, or actually I should say to the nearest tenth, but that wouldn't make a lot of sense for us here. The reason is our measurements up here in the problem aren't taken out to extreme accuracy. The miles were only measured to the nearest tenth of a mile. And the minute was only measured to the nearest whole minute. So I don't need to worry about going way out and making sure that my, how should I say it, answer is more accurate than the numbers I chose. But if you see how there's 2 digits in both of these numbers, we should make sure that our answer has 2 digits as well. So I'm going to keep going so I can round off to the nearest thousandths place here. I know I said hundreds a minute ago. I meant to say thousands. So 54 goes into 320. Oh, I don't know. Probably 5 times. I got to check this one. So 5 times 54 is 20, 25, 20, 270. Yeah, that makes sense. And that's 50. So that was 5. Okay, and that's where I'm going to stop. I'm not going to keep dividing, but I'm going to round it to the nearest thousandths place. Remember, you find the thousandths place, look to the right, high 5 rule. So it's going to be 0.043 or 43 thousandths. So I can put down my final answer for this as 43 thousandth miles per minute. And now I have to ask myself, does that even make sense? I'm trying to think here. Well, I have to think about that. Yeah, I think it does make sense. It makes sense because of the nature of how far we're going. Remember, this isn't in hours, this is in minutes. So in a minute, you're not going to be going very far. You're only going to be walking, probably a few hundred feet in a minute, and there's over 5,000 feet in a mile. So this makes sense. All right, so quick recap, we just divide. Just divide by the denominator, and you're going to end up with the number. In this case, I felt it was reasonable to round it because there was only 2 digits in the numbers I was using, so I should probably only have 2 digits in my answer. Anyways, hope that's helpful for you. Once again, this is the final answer up top here. It's kind of small. Sorry about that. Ran out of room. And good luck.